Welcome back to the Changemaker podcast. I'm your host, Deke Copenhaver. Today, my guest is my good friend and brother from another mother, Clint Bryant. Clint is firmly established as one of the most respected and longest-serving leaders in the intercollegiate athletics. He served 34 years as head of Augusta University Athletics. Under Clint's leadership, Augusta's programs have enjoyed success on and off the playing fields and courts, bringing home national, regional, and conference championships. Named the Division II Athletic Director of the Year and selected to the NCAA's Division II 40th anniversary team for his standout efforts, Bryant has made a name for himself throughout the state and region. Clint, I could go on, but welcome to the show.
Welcome to the Changemaker podcast, hosted by Deke Copenhaver. Deke is the author of The Changemaker, a Forbes publishing book that has reached #1 on Amazon on multiple occasions and in multiple categories like management skills and total quality management. During this podcast, Deke interviews exceptional change-making leaders. Deke currently operates Copenhaver Consulting, where he helps local governments and other public organizations maximize their potential. He's also a sought-after public speaker. We hope that the Changemaker has an impact on you today and that you find takeaways that make you a better leader in your life. Now, here's Deke.
Deke, thank you, and I'm glad you're doing this. And as always, we appreciate what you do for this community.
Well, I appreciate it. But so how does it, after 30, you were a coach for Augusta University, you were the athletic director with just phenomenal success for 34 years. How does it feel to be retired? And I know I ask you that, and I know you're not really retired.
I know. Well, I've retired from athletics, and I've had a good run. I tell people all the time, I was on a college campus my entire adult life. I left Mama's house when I was 18 and went to Belmont Abbey College, and I've been on a college campus for 49 years. And I don't know how it happened. It just kept rolling on, and I kept doubling down on it, and, went from player to college coach to athletic director and had a really good run, and really appreciate the people here in Augusta. Everybody said, are you guys going to leave Augusta? No, this is our home.
Yeah.
Trish and I have been here for 34 years. We love the people. We love the town. And so I'm going to continue to be here and work. And I tell people I still got 1 quarter left. It's not as good as my first couple of quarters, but, I still have a quarter left in life,
Well, let me ask you this. So my uncle, Jack Copenhaver, was a longtime professor at Virginia Tech. And I never married. He took care of my grandmother. But I remember asking him one time, I was probably in my 20s, I said, Uncle Jack, when did you start to feel old? He said, I never have. Yeah. He said, because he was like you on a college campus his whole life. And he said, being around young people every day, I never saw myself as being any older than them.
And that's Trish and I talked about that all the time, my entire career. And there were people our age. I'm 60, 70, 68 very, very soon, and Trish is in her early 60s. And we have friends, and they just seem so much older than us.
Yeah.
And we're the same age, but it had to do with being around college kids all the time and the type of energy they bring. So I felt like I never got old, but I went from being like a older brother to a dad, and now I'm like a granddad.
Yeah. Well, that's Melissa and I don't have kids, but being the youngest of 5 kids, we've now got 11. We've got 10 nieces and nephews and 11 great nieces and nephews, wow. Which I say is great because we've got plenty of kids involved in our lives, but we don't have to educate them, which is a plus. But I was thinking about it. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, I turned into my dad recently on a trip to Atlanta, and this has been a number of years ago. He said the kids were fighting in the back seat, and I'm like, do you want me to turn this car around? And I thought about it. I'm like, I think because I've never been a dad, I never sort of became that dad guy. I've always seen myself as being young too. But you and Trish just are amazing people in general.
Well, we're very excited. We have a 15-month-old grandson, and his name is August Bryant Smith, Kristen's son, and he's been a joy. We heard all the years how people talk about their grandkids and how it changed their lives, and we went, oh yeah, okay. This has been unbelievable. It's amazing, and our lives are just centered around him. We FaceTime every day. We have to see what's next in his life, and what was so exciting we were with them on Halloween. that weekend, and we took him on that Monday to library time. It was the first time he walked.
Really?
They had a little show, and they doing something. They brought out bubbles, and he started walking. He was close. And since that time, Deke, he's wide open, man. He is good. So that's a lot of joy to us.
That is awesome. And Clint, you and I mean, philosophically are on such the same page, and we've had discussions about, a need for good leadership in the world today. But you talk about having your first grandchild. I think sometimes when we look at the media, or it looks like everything's all bad, but really in this country there are great things going on. There are great leaders, but there are just great moments like that. Do you think we're as divided as a country as some would portray us to be?
No, I don't think, Zeke. I think these midterm elections basically solidified that for me, where it's very easy to think this country is going to hell in a handbasket, but it's not. You've heard me say this, that people too far left are just as bad as people too far right.
Yep.
Most of us are somewhere in the middle, and it's about finding common ground. It's okay for us to agree, to disagree.
Yeah.
But what's happened now, Deke, with social media and all the attention on the internet and people can write about their hate rhetoric, and there's somebody out there that's going to listen. And I think, what's alarming now is that we see what happened last week in Charlottesville, Virginia, or what went down in Utah the other day at the club. And it's just, this is crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely crazy. So what we have to do is try to continue to bring people together. And we have more in common than we have not uncommon. I mean, people. And so, we the last few years, and then going through the pandemic where people got to spend a lot of time at home and spend a lot of time looking at that darn computer.
Yeah.
It helped warp some people's minds. And then you just feel almost surprised at some of the rhetoric that's coming from our leaders. That's hate-filled, it's racist, it's homophobic, it's sexist.
Yeah.
And there's no place for that in this country.
No, and I just, as a former coach, so my dad, I always talk about him he was my true north. And one of the things that he taught me as a kid was the value of sportsmanship. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, I was reading an article on you recently that was talking about you attending a basketball game and seeing a young man come down the floor, the Augusta University Jaguars, down the floor with his shirt untucked, and you yelling at him to tuck his shirt in. But as a kid, I just think there's such value in good sportsmanship, and that's something I'm a huge sports fan. But I'm like, I would just think that should be the same thing in politics too. I mean, just in general.
I used to always say, sports is a game, but it's almost like the game of life.
Yeah.
And it's how you play the game, and you understand the rules. And there's always some things that we all think, but we got good enough sense not to say, if it means it's going to divide us and stuff like that. So I think we can learn. I used to say one thing about sports, and even when I ran my camp for 25 years, I had kids who come from $1 million homes, and then I had kids who came from the projects. Mm-hmm. And we put them all together, and they played basketball. But the one goal was they were trying to win. They were trying to compete, and they played together. And it didn't make no difference what color you were, what size you were. I was the first in this town. We had autistic kids in my camp. I remember, and I see young man is doing great now. He lives in Atlanta. His mom's great people. But we were very concerned when we first took him in camp, and it was great. But guess what? All the kids in camp understood that, and they made special accommodations for him when he was on the court. He got the ball. They said, no, leave him alone. Then when he passed the ball, it went back to normal. It was just crazy, man. But it showed you the love of people.
Yeah.
People are people. And let's forget about color and all of that and what you believe in or don't believe in. Like a guy said one time, if I'm in a foxhole, I'm not worried what religion you are, what color you are. I'm worried if you can shoot straight.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly. And that's the thing to me is that, I was texting with a friend of mine the other day. His son graduated from the Air Force Academy, and so he's has been flying missions in Europe. But I was telling him, and I think this goes back to something that you just said about what you can learn from young people, I told my friend, I said, so many people say that the younger generation, they aren't patriotic and they don't love our country. And I'm like, I see, 20-something-year-olds like your son serving our United States. Less than 1% of our nation's population volunteer to protect the rest of our freedoms. So let's look for examples like that rather than just painting with the broad brush and putting people, all black people are this way, all white people are this way, all, females, all whatever. I'm like, we're all in it together, but just making those broad-based statements is not correct often.
Well, you're exactly right, Deke. I mean, every generation of people that's ever been on this earth is a different generation. So, I remember growing up and, people were wearing their hair long and all of that. And God, the music was listening to, our parents thought we were crazy.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing now,
Yep.
Times change, things change, and you make an adjustment. I was saying life is a never-ending process of getting used to things that you didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happening all the time. You've been like me over the last couple of weeks. I've lost some very close friends, Wayne, Howard, Pat Johansson, John Trulock. If there was a finer human being that's ever lived than John Trulock, I want to see him. He was one great individual. But like anyone, they gonna pass.
Yeah.
But we need other people picking up the mantle to talk about the goodness and everything. John Trulock and I served on the Boys and Girls Club. We did a lot of good things together. Steak and burger dinner. We bought that to Augusta College years ago. And he and I never sit down and talked about politics. It didn't make a difference if he was Republican. We never talked about that. What we did know is that he was a really good human being, and we were going to try to make it better for others.
And, and Clint, I go back to my dad, but I go to men like you and men like John Trulock. They're gentlemen. You're a gentleman. And that's what I want to see. I'm not having kids, but my great nieces and nephews. I want to see them emulate people who are gentlemen and who are compassionate, who are ladies, and who are, there are role models out there, but it's just, it doesn't seem like that's really that behavior is what's lifted up in the media or on social media.
I know I've told you about it, and that's why most recently I've become involved with Andrew Young, and I'm chairing his HBCU scholarship committee. And McGraw-Hill has given $500,000, and we'll give another $500,000 for $1 million donation to kick it off, and it will go to help students at historically black colleges and universities who drop out for little or no money, $3,000 or $5,000. They drop out of school, so they'll help them to stay in school. But the main thing is they're starting a curriculum of Martin Luther King and Andrew Lowe's belief in nonviolence and all of that meant. And I think about Martin Luther King going to Boston University School of Divinity, and that's where he learned from Gandhi and about being the nonviolent movement. If Martin Luther King would have went a route of violence, the civil rights movement would have never survived. No. And so there's something good in that teaching. And we want to make sure that some of our youth are coming, they benefit for that type of teaching. What's good in life? Let's be good. Not to say that you're not going to call out bad when you see bad or wrong when you see wrong, but let's do it in a manner that's good.
And Dr. King is one of my great heroes, but one of his my favorite quotes of his is, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." Yep. And I think that just puts it to me, the way that we should all look at life and look at our nation and our communities. If we want to just fuss and fight, that's, we know, I mean, I'm a Christian. I don't mind anybody else's, begrudge anybody else their faith. But we know that it is a battle. It's a battle of good and evil. And if you let yourself be divided and angry with other folks and everything, you're losing that battle, I would say.
Yeah, well, the thing that I think, and one of my favorite sayings from Martin Luther King was that his little children would grow up not to be judged by their character, not the color of their skin. And everybody think that Martin was just talking about his kids or his children. He was talking about the world's children.
Yep.
Everybody's child. And I thought about that this week, and I was really, really close to Pat Johansson. Mm-hmm. He was one good man. But there was a guy that he was not judged by the color of his skin, but the character. He was a decent person to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of who you were. And so that's what I think is important, and how we can all learn from that, and being a part of a society where we can all get along and all work together. And yes, we have differences. Yes, we have beliefs. That's why we have a democratic society.
Yeah.
And that's why we can go to the polls and vote. And that's an important right for us to have.
And that's what my parents taught me growing up, is to, no matter anybody's station in life, to just treat everybody with dignity and respect. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've tried to focus on. But going back to, Martin Luther King's dream, so I've said many times, so I was elected mayor of Augusta 3 times in a city that was majority African American every time. And I tell people that I was judged based on the content of my character and not the color of my skin. And so I'm like, I got to live what I think is a reflection of what his dream was. And mm-hmm. so often here at Augusta, people portray the city as being racially divided and all this. But you and I know you're a huge supporter of the arts. When I see arts in the heart of Augusta, it's a festival here in downtown Augusta. We have a lot of listeners from outside the area, but it brings 90,000 people together in our city center, has an annual economic impact of $4 million plus probably now, but it celebrates arts, culture, and diversity. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, that's the community that I see. I don't see this terribly divided community.
And this year, Deke, for the first time, there were 100,000 people here.
Were they really?
For the first time.
Wow.
100,000. And I think Arts and Heart, again, shows how people and what West Dubuque has done, what the thing that they have in Charleston every year for years. Spoleto. All of those cultural things are really good. They have a Geechee festival down in the lower state as well. But it's about bringing people and respecting people's cultures mm-hmm. and where they come from. And then being able to just all come together and work together for the good.
Yeah.
We need to be interested in what makes Augusta a better place. And we've seen it happen in Birmingham, Alabama. We've seen it happen in Greenville, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And hopefully those things will continue to happen here in Augusta.
Well, another big event that we have here locally that, as I say, we're not necessarily geotagged to Augusta. We've got listeners all over the place. But that some, particularly our younger listeners, or our listeners and viewers that are fans of basketball, you were instrumental in bringing the Peach Jam to Augusta, which is just a phenomenal. Talk to us a little bit about that for our listeners that might not.
I tell you, in 1996, when we had the idea, because Nike wanted to have a youth basketball tournament, and one thing, the college coaches make the tournament, and so we were concerned because that was the year we had the Olympics in Atlanta, and the Olympics had booked up all the hotels in a 2-hour radius: Augusta, Greenville, Chattanooga, Montgomery, Macon. They had all the hotels, and they released them 1 week before the Olympics. And so all the coaches said, we had 530 coaches here that year. And right now the Nike Peach Jam is in the 27th year. It's the longest running event of its kind. And places all over the country have been trying to talk to Nike to have it moved. But it's the second largest event of making money for the city behind the Masters. Mm-hmm. This has a $12 million impact on this country. People come here, they stay in hotels, they eat, they be here for a couple, 3 weeks. And it's super, man. And so things like that, and people saying, well, it's in North Augusta, but it don't matter. We can't let state or county lines divide us. We all one community. That's what I like about Metro Atlanta. It's all Metro Atlanta. This is all Metro Augusta.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we need, as you know, we need downtown Augusta to be a vibrant place with art and music and culture, a place for people to come. No matter if you live in Modoc, South Carolina, or Thompson, Georgia, Augusta, Georgia should be the center place.
Exactly. Well, for our viewers and listeners, though, it just blows me away the level of talent that has come through the Peach Jam and all the college coaches that continue to come back year after year and all the NBA players that show up. So just for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, just do a little name dropping.
Oh, well, I think last year it was from, Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James' sons were playing. And then the top 50 people that's played in the Peach Jam are some of the best names that's ever played in sports. And it's good to watch. And Augusta has benefited from that because of their appreciation of basketball. And you can't get in the gym over there at night because they come to see the college coaches. You know, I remember the first year we had Bobby Knight and John Thompson and John Chaney and John Calipari and on, Mike Krzyzewski. They were coming from all over the country to spend a week in Augusta, Georgia. And I think it benefits because now we have some of the best basketball in the southeast of Augusta. We had 4 state champions here last year. Westside, Grovetown, Cross Creek, Augusta Christian, all state champions.
Yeah.
You know? And it's a tremendous community for basketball. William Avery and Ricky Moore, 2 local kids, made their stay in the Peach Jam. And then 3 years later, they were playing in the national championship. William at Duke and Ricky Moore
UConn.
At UConn.
Yep.
And they were playing each other. And they were 2 Augusta, Georgia kids who played on the same high school team. And so it's just been unbelievable, the caliber of student athletes who have been here to go on to college and then go to the pros.
Yeah.
That's played, and the coaches that's been here. And they all think about Augusta, Georgia, but being a very warm place. People, they love the food, they love the atmosphere, and our city is better off for it. Just like that little golf tournament we have up the street.
Yes.
Our city is better off for it because for years it's been inclusive of people from all over the world. We got a great appreciation of golf because of that. But then some things happened at the Masters, and the honor they gave the first black golfer,
Lee Elder,
who and what they did recently is constantly evolving as well. What they have done in the community and helping creating the hub and the community foundation, again trying to bring people together, and we got so much going on. I mean, that cyber center down here, the deal. Cyber centers.
Oh yeah,
and then what's happening at Fort Gordon? The sky is still the limit, and I don't know if you're noticing. There's a lot of growth in Augusta.
Oh yeah,
there are apartment condos going up everywhere. And my oldest daughter Lauren, who went to Georgetown and spent the last 12 years in D.C., she just moved home.
I know you got to love that,
and she's loving it. But guess what? We need more. Tiffany Hobbs. Just moved back. She's on Channel 6, but again, a local. We need more of our young and brightest coming back to Augusta and feel like they can make their home here. And it's not all about Atlanta or Charlotte or Washington, D.C. They can come back here and make a difference.
Well, and that's the thing to me is I think that particularly coming through the pandemic, people can choose. I mean, they can work virtually and they can choose where to live. And to me, I've always said cities like Augusta that are medium-sized, that are affordable, should rack up as people leave some of the major metropolitan areas, and particularly young people, the best and brightest young minds are the lifeblood of any community. They're the lifeblood of any business. And so you're right. We've got to recruit and retain. I'm just glad your daughter's back. I mean, a Georgetown grad.
I told her, I said, look, you got 30 days to find you a place. And she's laughed. But she's going around looking at apartment places. And she said, Dad, I can get a great place to live for a third of what I was saying in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yep.
And so, I think more of that will happen. Then when they come back, we have to get them involved,
Mm-hmm.
Because, we get older, man. You're
Yeah.
getting older. I'm getting older. But there got to be people who are going to pick up the mantle and run.
Yep.
Charles Devaney, great leader. Ed McIntyre, a great leader. Well, time moves on.
Yeah.
And who's that next group of young people who can make a difference in our community? So I'm always emphasizing, any civic group I'm in, or like the Kiwanis Club of Augusta, let's recruit more young members.
Yep.
Let's get more young people involved. And that's so important to what we're trying to do, because young people have an understanding, man, a really bright understanding. And it's kind of like I tell people, I remember going to the Atlanta airport when I first got 30 years ago. There must have been 5,000 payphones in the place. There was just rows of telephones. And I remember running off the plane, the first thing people running, getting on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
There's not a payphone in the Atlanta airport anymore.
No.
Because guess what? We all addicted to these cell phones.
Exactly.
And now my cell phone is on my watch. Think about that. So times change, man.
Yeah, and
that's good.
Well, and that's what I've shared with people is I'm like, either you learn to adjust to change, to pivot and change with the times, or if you don't learn to adjust to change, you're going to get run over by change.
Right.
And it does seem like there are an awful lot of people who often are willing to get run over by change, but it's, as you say, it's going to happen. And I know it's scary, but the better we can learn to embrace it, the better we're all going to be.
Right, and you're exactly right about that, Deke. And so that's what's happening. And I encourage our young people. And I made a talk yesterday to the Kiwanis Club, and I said, during this holiday season, let's take some time to make sure we spend some time with the seasoned members of our family.
Mm-hmm.
The older aunt or uncle or grandma or grandpa that everybody thinks are getting a little feeble or a little senile or got dementia. Sit down and talk to those people, because they done probably forgot more about life than we'll ever know.
Exactly.
But that's how we learn. That's how we have an appreciation for who we are and what's important in life. And so, I just want us to, this community, Deke, and you and I have talked about this for years, this community can be as great as it wants to be,
mm-hmm.
But it's going to take all of us pulling together and doing the right thing and trying to create an atmosphere of inclusiveness for everybody.
Absolutely. And that's to me, I think I might have said on the show, but some years ago somebody asked me, well, if Augusta was food, what would it be? And I said, well, it of course it would be a gumbo, because everybody knows that gumbo wouldn't taste nearly as good. How are you going to have gumbo with just one ingredient? But you mix all those ingredients in there, and you got
with the right seasoning.
With the right seasoning, you are good. Well, Clint, I want to ask you just what in 34 years as athletic director, what are some of the most memorable highlights that during that time?
I think the most memorable highlights are all about the kids.
Yeah.
The student athletes that we've had come through Augusta University, and watching them grow and watching them develop. Of course, people are going to talk about the back-to-back national championships and all of that, and I'm sorry, Deke, but and then what banners we have hanging in the rafters and all that. But all I do know is that 98% of the student athletes during that time who finished 4 years of collegiate eligibility got their degrees.
Yeah.
That's what I remember more than anything else. And a lot of these kids were first-generation college graduates. Mm-hmm. And they came to Augusta and they got a degree. And I had this week over 50 of my former players come back. And one came all the way from San Francisco, another from Gary, Indiana, another from Tallahassee, Florida, and a number still remain right here in this area.
Yeah.
But what we talked about all the time is that our goals are higher than 10 feet.
Yep.
When life hands you lemons, make lemonade.
Yep.
We all drink from wells that we did not dig. You know.
Amen, brother. Preach. Preach.
So, you know, those are the type things. And it was so funny being with all of them. And you don't know that they're listening.
Yeah.
When they're 17, 18, and 19 years old. But guess what? I don't know how much you and I listened when we were 17, 18. But now they can all repeat all that stuff back to me. And it shows. So that's the main thing I've gotten over 34 years is that we've been able to make a positive impact on some young people's lives. And they have an appreciation now of being college educated.
Yeah.
But also having an experience to come to college and play sports and travel around. One thing I used to do with the international kids that came here and played sports, no matter if it was golf or tennis or whatever, and this was old school, they wouldn't do it today. I used to say, get you a paper map of the United States. And from Augusta, every time you go somewhere in this country, I want you to draw a line. So I said, it won't mean nothing to you right now, but 10, 15, or 20 years from now, you'll pull that map out, and you'll be showing your grandkids where you went to in the United States. And one thing, excuse me, I don't have COVID. I had a SRV or something a couple of weeks ago. They said I will have the cough for 3 months. I mean, 3 weeks, and yes, I do. But one of the things these kids have been able to do is enjoy the experience of being in college. And wherever we went, I don't care if we played internationally or we played in California, Hawaii, the thing that was consistent across their chest was Augusta.
Yeah.
And people knew they were Augusta, and everybody thought, well, they had a capital of golf, the home of James Brown. But we were trying to get people to say, there's a university there, and there's a consolidated university here. And two of our best-kept secrets, Deke, we have a hell of a cancer center at Augusta.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The Children's Hospital of Georgia is one of the best in this country. I think they're the best-kept secrets around.
I agree.
They're exceptional entities in this town, and that's something for us to be proud of. I'm hoping and praying all the time that Payne College can continue to be a part of our community as well. I know they've had some financial issues of late, but at the same time, it means so much for our community. And I tell people all the time, you know, problems in our community is not a black community problem or a white community. It's a problem for all of us. You know,
exactly.
We need to make sure that we do all we can do to help our sheriff department and marshal's department to do their job. And their job is to keep law and order. But our job, too, is to make sure we support these nonprofits and give kids an opportunity for a better life, helping them with tutoring and mentoring and all of those things as well.
Well, and I'll tell you, I constantly said this when I was in office. I've said it for 8 years out of office. There is no them and us. It's all us.
Yes, sir.
And the river doesn't stop flowing or the wind blowing at any perceived political or neighborhood line. We're all in it together.
Right. You're right about that, Deke. So back to your question. I mean, you know, there have been a lot of great things happen, and God knows, going through the name changes.
Oh, yeah.
And all that. Now, I'll tell you this, Deke. There are three things I think in my life that I never thought I'd see, and I'm going to name those three for you right now. There's been truly, I didn't never think I'd witness this country having a black president, and we got that in Barack Obama, and Trish and I had the opportunity to go to his first inauguration, and it was outstanding. The other thing is that I never thought I'd live or see a world pandemic like we did in COVID. And then the third thing, Deke, is I never thought I'd see what happened on January the 6th. I never thought I'd live to see that. But with that being said, those things occurred. Those things happened. And that, like anything in history is always about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
You know? But what do we do? It's kind of like sports. I was never concerned as a coach how you played or how you acted when we were up 20 points and things was going hunky-dory. And you got a 15-2 record and looked like you're going to make the NCAA. I was always interested in how were you going to act when you got knocked down. When it's late in the game, you're down 4 with a minute and a half to play. When your record is not 15-3, but 3-15.
Yep.
That's where you truly find out the make of people. And that's what I think even with these things. We're going to bounce back from COVID better than we ever have been. You know, we're going to bounce back from what happened on January 6th better than we ever did. Because what it did was give us an opportunity to say, hey, nothing is given in this life.
No.
It is not. And it gets back to you being a Christian and everything. And I tell people, man, I don't know if anything could have got worse than Friday in the crucifixion.
Yeah.
I don't think if anything could have ever got worse.
No.
But the good thing is that Sunday morning came.
Yep. Yep. And you know, that's, to me, you always have to have hope. And that's one trait of good leadership, is engendering hope in people. And you did that as a coach, and you saw your teams overcome adversity, you overcame adversity. So it's a character builder to go through the difficult times.
Oh yeah, and it's not easy, and it's something that you can't sometimes put into words. But life is going. And I remember old people when I was growing up, they used to say, "Just keep on living."
Yep.
You know, if you keep on living, you're gonna see some things. But again, when you see those things, how do you take those things to make this world, to make your life a better place? And then hopefully that's where we're headed, and hopefully with people like you constantly preaching the positiveness, it'll make a difference.
Well, I will tell you, I've got a couple questions to ask as we get towards the end,
Okay.
we do need to get you back over to the house. For our listeners, Clint and I are neighbors. We're across the street neighbors. But on a daily basis, Clint, what puts a smile on your face and brings joy to your heart?
Oh, on a daily basis, I guess just waking up every morning. You know, we live there and on the hill, and I live right there on Ray's Creek, and just being able to get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee and sit out back or eat breakfast, and it's just to me that's great, man. Just being vertical, as I call it.
Yeah, being vertical is good.
You know, and then the old folks used to pray, just waking up sane and in your right mind, you know, and so that's a blessing.
It is.
And I like that. And then, you know, I have an office downtown now, and I go to work for a few hours a day, but you know, I go, and if I don't want to go, I don't go. You know, that's one thing. And I still like to travel, and but that brings a smile to my face, just knowing that my family's doing well. Both the girls, you know, Lauren, who graduated from Georgetown, has her own business. Kristen is a vice president of an international company. She lives in Charlotte. I said, if I die, I want to come back as my kids, Kristen. They spend Memorial Day to Labor Day at their home on the Cape, and then they spend Labor Day to Memorial Day at their home in Charlotte. You know, so yeah, life is real tough.
That's not a bad life if you can get it.
And so that brings a smile to my face every day. And then the other thing is being able to feel that you built some really good relationships around when you see people and run into people. And then when you run into former athletes of that and you see where they're going, and it might be something that say, hey, coach, thanks.
Yep.
You know, it's not about how much money you got in the bank or how big your house or what you call it. It's just the simple things. And sometimes I find myself just standing on the bridge right down from your house looking at Ray's Creek flow, you know, which is okay.
I'll tell you, Clint, thank you for being an awesome guest and for being a great friend as well, and for all that you've done. You haven't just done for this community, for what you've done for, you know, college sports. It's amazing. There's a reason why you're in several Hall of Fames, but thank you for being a tremendous guest, brother.
Well, thank you for having me, Deke, and I'm going to return the favor because I'm talking about starting my podcast of Outside the Paint. They call the paint the area of the court at the free throw line. And in basketball, we call it the paint. So I'm going to start my podcast called Outside the Paint. And we're going to talk about a lot of things.
All righty. Well, that sounds good. Well, just for our listeners and viewers, reminding you to rate, and subscribe. That's how we know that the podcast is doing well. But with that, we are dropping the mic and we are out. Hey guys, thanks for listening to or watching the Changemaker podcast today. Greatly appreciate it. If you're listening and you want to see the video, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Deke Copenhaver. That's a pretty easy to remember, I would think. But really, we also want to remind you to like, subscribe, rate across all platforms, download. And if you're looking for a coach, a speaker, or anything, you know where to find me. Just email me at dekecopenhaver.com. And thanks so much for listening.